the good part is we have less crowd, so less controversy and less things to respond about. But the more important part is that there's a big topic that has been given to us, which is bridging Bharat to Bytes, empowering the next billion. And next billion is not a small number, and I think all of you guys are doing some very interesting work in connecting us to the next billion. So before coming here, just for everybody's full visibility, I had sent some questions to all of you guys. But then somebody told us it should be out of syllabus. So we will just ask questions which are not being asked. And we will just keep it open-ended and just go through this. Now, while the topic is about AI divide, I just want to start off with one question first and just get everybody's perspective that this AI divide, will Bharat ever catch up? And I think we use the word AI as a mass leveler, but is this really an elite thing or is this a mass thing? How do we all see this? So maybe I'll start with Puneet first. I think Puneet, with verniq, you guys are building a lot of AI solutions and AI sort of outputs. But do you see AI tools being meant only for elite? Or do you see this going down? And maybe with your own example, if you can share with the audience, how do you see this really bridging the divide?
See, it's counterintuitive, but it is true also, right? When we build something, we build it for ourselves. When we build it for ourselves, we technically are building for metro cities, people who know English, people who are used to using technology in one form or another. I'll give you a very small example, right? So when we built verniq, one of the most key aspects for us was English. Okay. Most of the AI models work well on English. They probably work well on Hindi also. But how do we make sure that AI model works well on English? We put all our efforts into it. Very proud of it. Gave my domestic help to use it. And she's like, Bhaiya, main type nahi karti.
That's also metro, right? I mean,
and
she's
like,
also in the metro, yeah.
Like when she said it, I was like, what? Yeah. And I then realized every time she has sent me a WhatsApp, she has only sent in voice. She has never sent it in text. And I used to reply in text, then I switched to voice. So I was like, okay, we have to now rethink this. We can't solve for text at all. We have to solve for dialects. We have to solve for audio. And these nuances are what basically most of us probably miss when we build a tool that is the biggest threat to kind of mass adoption. That are we building it for people like us, or are we actually including everybody else also and then building it from there? So for me, that's actually one of the biggest threats, that without including people from that billion blue-collar workforce or tier 4 cities, people who don't know English, people who have very strong dialects, how do we build it from there? And that's where the challenge lies.
Actually, that brings me maybe to Ramya, because you are working with many teachers. I mean, I think you mentioned about, what, 1.7 million? Or, yeah. So I think that's a large number of teachers that you're working with, and some of them you mentioned, they take a boat to go to the school, and it's not easily accessible. So just what's your view of AI? That is it AI a Bangalore phenomena or a Delhi phenomena, or are you seeing use cases going down below? And I just want to touch upon one small thing, Ramya, which is, while we say that the education system is designed for training for skills of yesterday, in that same context, are you seeing that we are creating enough AI-ready teacher pool to train the kids of next generation to be ready with AI?
No, so I think there are 2-3 different questions there, and start with the first, and building on what Puneet said, I think building the tools for mass adoption becomes very important. And coming to the teacher segment, for example, when we launched Centa AI, like it's Centa with an I at the end, when we launched that, we did things like, okay, let's help you create a worksheet where you can choose that 3 questions should be of the knowledge level of Bloom's, 3 should be application level, etc. A little bit the way our content team thinks. But when a teacher is creating a worksheet in real life, he or she, in most of the cases, is not thinking like that. It's basically saying, this is my topic, I want 10 questions on this topic. Maybe some questions will be easier, some will be more difficult, some I'll have to think a little bit more, etc. So we switched around to saying, okay, choose your topic, click a button, 10 questions will appear. How much do you want them to be linked to the syllabus? How much do you not want? So exactly as he said.
And was it getting adopted really well?
It is getting adopted very well. So it's getting adopted very well. So when you look at the pieces of a teacher's work or any frontline professions work, there are pieces of that which you can build where AI can take care of it, and they should ideally be the things that the person doesn't want to do. They are pained with them, like worksheet creation, lesson plan creation, correcting an answer sheet. So how do you use AI for those things which the person is pained with, and therefore they'll be happy to adopt, and do it in a manner that it fits into their normal process. And I think with that, there can be mass adoption. Your other question is quite different, which is how are teachers ready to transmit these skills to students? And maybe, if you want to come back to that,
I'll come back
will.
to this question. So Amrita, just coming to you, I cannot go beyond this without asking you this question. Like, Google is doing phenomenal amount of innovation, and I think we heard the last panel, one of the last questions, they said that, look, you can't build a wrapper on top. You do need to constantly innovate. But the amount of innovation that Google is doing, does that leave any room for homegrown innovation and homegrown solution? And how do you see, from a vantage point of Google, what the local platforms and the local entities can work upon to actually bring AI to large scale and to bring it to the billions out there?
Absolutely. So I do think that companies like Google and many other offering open source options, we're really trying to democratize technology, trying to democratize AI, and making it available to everyone. So if you take, for example, smartphones or Android as a platform, we started working on that 20 years back. And then, yes, Google did give you the platform, but there are still apps, there is enough opportunities for an ecosystem to thrive on top of it. I also want to highlight that we want to be at a point where, we are in fact already at a point where for doing AI, you don't need ML engineers. You don't need data scientists. You don't even need developers at this point. If you look at some of the options that are available on our platform and also in the open source community, you will see that it is really getting to a point where it is commoditized. We are also looking at prices going down. You must have heard about DeepSeek earlier this last week. And we do see that trend in our own infrastructure, optimizations and things like that, that AI will be available to everyone as we get a developer ecosystem going, as we get many, many apps being built. It will be really just as available as you have smartphones today. I mean, smartphones have a good penetration in tier 1, tier 2 cities, in different economic strata within the society. So AI will be available just as easily. The question is, what are you going to build with it? And as a platform, Google is not going to solve for what you can do with it. We are going to enable all of you. But that will open up enough opportunities for everyone in the education sector, in the manufacturing sector. I think the relevance that each of these developers or each of these companies can bring is the flavor of using AI as a tool for your audience. So that's going to be the most interesting place to play, I would feel.
No, it's a very important point you're making, because I think we get paranoid very quickly. And I think when the browser movement happened, people said, who owns browser will own the world. But people built on top of browser. Then came the app stores, and people said, who owns app store will win the world. But people built on top of app stores. And then cloud came and said, people who will own cloud will own the world. But people build on top of the cloud ecosystem. And similarly with AI, I definitely feel that is the electricity who will build the right bulbs and who will build the right fans and the right AC will sort of take a fair amount of value coming out of it. But just moving, Ratnesh, to you on the same thought process, because we are just still talking connecting to billions. In the world of AI, when things are changing every day, 3 days back, there was no DeepSeek, or at least a week back, there was no DeepSeek. And then suddenly, DeepSeek came out and launched and sort of dropped a bomb with a huge model coming out. And things are changing so rapidly. Do we still need to get assessed? And how does assessment get changed in a constant evolution way? Because yesterday, what you were perhaps assessing today may not be that relevant. And how does ETS take into account that assessment on a constant basis for workforce development?
Thanks, Bank. Bridging Bharat to Bytes as your topic, and then you're saying assessment required. See, if you look at India today, and I'm contextualizing it from India, and I'll bring it over to the world the way we look at assessment. Your population today are equipped. They have an access to AI, right? So they all have digital access, pervasive, at a price which is really nowhere in the world. So for us to say that it's not an accessibility, it's not an accessibility issue. Then the question come in with that access tools such as what we are, whether assessment or others, can that be used in a way that we as an organization relevant, but also equip the new learners? Now today, give you example, this whole AI is based on the large learning model, right? And within that, what we see, our data becomes very important, right? And over the years, we have an assessment called TOEIC. Yep. We run about 7 million tests. We have had 140 million tests run over the years. AI today would need that data to contextualize that assessment for the future jobs which you want to navigate. Now the jobs nature or the sectors are not changing. Maybe a nature of engagement which is changing, maybe the way you would do the job. Anybody who actually AI enabled as a human would actually have a better sort of opportunity. Within that, a responsible job of ours, how do I make a choice-based assessment? How do I make a sectoral assessment? How do I equip them to be coming in the mainstream? Now, let me bring it to the world. Today, India is not India. India is equipping India, but India is also exporting skills. You've recently announced, Mang, that you want to export skills, right? When you want to export skills, you need to understand culture, you need to understand collaboration, you need to understand the different context. Just because you have a disruption such as AI, your understanding of those cannot fast forward it. So therefore, for example, in Japan, we run about 2 million tests. It's a difficult market for us to sort of get penetrated. We're very local, we are contextualized, we are deep-seated. What we are doing is we are adding layer of AI to augment the learning even further. So we're working on the production skills for them to be more mainstreaming. So for 1 billion people to be equipped, it is important that accessibility plus enabling them is a very responsible job which we need to do as ETS and others need to perform the same.
So just getting an announcement
If I may just add on the assessment piece, right? I think to build on what Ratnesh is saying, there are two aspects of assessment. So when I look at our teacher certification and when AI came into the teacher certification, initially we started testing how much do you as a teacher understand AI. But we realized very quickly that in our other vertical where we staff teachers, what the employer is looking for often is not whether you understand AI, but whether you can create a lesson plan using AI far more rapidly. And therefore, increasingly our assessment has switched to saying, can you use this sensibly, which goes back to the core skills of pedagogical understanding, knowing what a lesson plan should have, knowing what a worksheet should have, and therefore when AI is producing something, do you know whether it's good or bad?
That domain understanding still remains ultra critical no matter what happens. So can I get one announcement out? Is ETS going to open up the APIs for people to build on top of that for the founders out here, for the 7 million assessment that you spoke about?
Let me ask you the first question first. Are these all chat GPT?
No, this one is not on ChatGPT. We are using Google Gemini. We are all on Google Gemini right now.
No, so I think ETS is an organization, non-for-profit registered in the US. We are a responsible organization. We do a lot of work which is to build the capacity, increase capacity. We continue to do that over the years. Now, it is important for me to say that for us to run that, we also commercially need to be viable. For us to do responsibly that in many parts of the world, particularly in developing world. For example, in India today, we work with Ministry of Education running the Prague. So that's not a commercial contract for us. It is essentially enabling the assessment aggregation in a way that we can reach out to these billions, and which is a very empowering work which you're doing. It's not a commercial work. It is empowering, capacity building, and making sure we reach to those billions people. That's OpenAI.
Perfect.
API.
I did not get the answer from him directly, but I think I got the gist of it. So just moving, because we also have the word called next billion workers, and I think we are talking about workers and workforce development broadly. So Puneet, maybe just to start with, because you are at the thick of building solutions and models, etc. With all the development that you see around, are you seeing that AI is automating the jobs faster than we can skill and train up people? And how do you see the workers sort of skilling up? That should we accept that a large chunk of Indian workforce will not be AI enabled and they will be left in a different ballgame altogether? Just what's your thought on just AI skill? Because AI is changing rapidly. We are skilling up, but
Correct.
the system is moving very rapidly. How do we see that coming along?
So there are two sides of innovation always, right? One, AI by definition approaches, let's say, a problem in a very different way. You might have needed, let's say, 50,000 people to do one particular job. You probably would need 25,000. So that makes a very simple calculation for any business owner that there is maths associated with it. I save salary of 25,000 people, so I have to implement this AI solution. But on the opposite end, I think where we are not scaling as fast as we still see learning or specifically workforce upskilling in a very traditional way. When I say traditional way, I mean we still think like, okay, we have to sit them in a classroom, or we have to send them a video, we have to take an assessment, and everything associated with it.
Or they can join upgrade and...
Correct. Right? So now for a worker, that's not working out. They're not used to one staying in an organization for like 5 years to go through the entire journey of upscaling and then getting promoted and stuff like that. For them, it is their monthly salary which is important, and whoever pays higher, that is where they're going. So the upskilling also has to change with it. And AI does enable that. You now can just ask a question and get an answer. You don't need to sit them in a classroom or do any of those things that you used to do previously. So where I think we are not changing as fast as we should is on the job training using AI. And that is where if we kind of start pushing towards, we will see that 25,000 probably even come down to 20,000 because they have been upskilled enough that they can use those tools better. I think it's pretty much...
No, I understand. So I think at a scale at which you are, what you're saying is you have to constantly train, but let me just sort of bring it to Google and Google Cloud, etc. Overall, that I know that you guys do a lot of training. I think in the previous generation, you put across significant amount of investment for Android training. Then you guys came in on cloud training. How does Google see this AI skilling and AI reskilling for the workforce? Because I think you guys also bring in a significant amount of, you come with a, I don't call it ethical, moral, but you have a responsibility as a responsible sort of participant that you do need to skill a large number of workers. And how does Google see this entire skilling ecosystem?
Excellent question. So first of all, I fully agree with Puneet. Many industries are adopting AI, but they are looking at it as, okay, I have these people doing this job, so how do I automate it and now make it happen with fewer people? The right way to look at it is that what are the other jobs that now need to be done? It's not just about automating the existing jobs. The way we do things is going to fundamentally change. So it's not like you can just take these 50,000 people and reduce it to 25. You might just get rid of this entire 50,000 and hire a different 25,000 as skill.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever we look at skills development, we are really insisting, and this is a little different from our Android approach. In our Android approach, we were like, okay, whatever is on the desktop, you take it to the mobile phone. It was a slightly easier transition. This one is a very big step change. So in fact, we are working with companies across various sectors where they are looking at what are the new skills that are going to be required. So I'll give an example of healthcare. Healthcare is one of the early adopters. Healthcare and financial services are some of the early adopters of AI. Very, lots of investment happening. And the way they are using AI is to scale up their business, to increase the reach. A lot of preventative healthcare that can now be accessible to tier 2 and tier 3 audience, which physically they couldn't really make it happen with only tier 1 city presence. So things like that. So what are the skills that are going to be required for that kind of expansion is really the question that they're asking. So coming back to your question, I do think that there are various initiatives for upskilling. And again, people don't need to be in technology. People don't need to be into engineering or any such thing. I think the domain knowledge is going to be fundamentally important. And we need to think about what are the new skills that are going to be required rather than just looking at what is the, how do I do the same thing in an automated way. So if you were to highlight just one skill that everyone needs to be really good at is learning to learn, because you're going to be upskilling and retraining our audience through all the different tools that we have, but we're going to be doing this reskilling almost every year now or maybe every few months, because you can no longer sit with this comfort that, okay, now I have learned this technology, now I'm good for 5 years. It's just not moving at that pace. So learning to learn with hundreds of different tools that are available and then focusing on the domain rather than just automating away the existing workflows. That would be my take.
Yeah, so learning to learn, learning to unlearn, and just constantly continue to learn. But Google is working on certain new AI programs, AI skilling programs.
Absolutely. So we do, first of all, Google is very supportive of the open source ecosystem. So we have launched a lot of models in the open source. We have Gemma, we're supporting Meta's Llama. For each of these options across the entire stack, we have launched learning programs, learning paths. We are also giving out certifications. We are doing industry-specific certifications as well as technology-specific certifications. So you can take up some of these options, and we are seeing some of GSIs like Accenture or Wipro using some of those options to say that their talent pool is AI ready. So some of these badges, skill badges or certifications are super useful. But yes, both the training as well as the technology is moving forward really fast. So we are providing that learning platform
No, I think
as
it's
well.
a time, I mean, I've jokingly said sometimes that this is like an Excel moment, that everybody needs to know Excel, everybody needs to know PowerPoint, everybody needs to know typing. I think AI is one such sort of phenomena where everybody needs to know how to use it in a day-to-day basis. And therefore, Ramya, coming to your point, and maybe you can negate and sort of add on to this, as you're looking at the future, how would you see AI skilling? Would you skill teachers with AI, or would you replace them with AI tutors? Just how are you, from a vantage point of working with many teachers, how do you see AI skilling and teacher upgradation?
Yeah. So CENTA will never replace teachers. CENTA stands for teachers.
It was a leading question.
So we have teacher in the name of our company. We decided that right in the beginning, right? So our weight is entirely behind teachers. But what is becoming very interesting, I think this whole point about supplementing with AI. So let's say there is a job and we are trying to provide teachers for that job. And out of our 1.7 million teachers, let's say only 100 fit the criteria in whatever combination, geography, subject, board, and then skills. So we have our testing. So the funnel becomes very small very quickly, right? What AI does is to widen that funnel, because you then find that, okay, somebody is not scoring well on lesson planning, but is scoring well on, say, subject or communication. And now I can provide the AI tool in lesson planning, and the person as a package can be deployed. So it is actually increasing the employability of the community in that manner. The person doesn't need to know AI, and which is why I was sort of negating what you said. I don't think the person needs to understand AI.
Use the tools, yeah.
Yeah, but they basically need to understand how what is a lesson plan, and is this tool delivering a lesson plan that is usable in the classroom. And with that combination, we are actually finding, and see, I'm also operating in a segment which is very unique, because teachers don't get replaced for multiple reasons.
No, the reason it's unique is that you are not just training and helping teachers get skill, you are training the teachers who will train 100 students afterwards. So you have a lot more responsibility in that context as well.
Yes, there is a lot more responsibility in that context, and I think as we see it, there will be a subset of teachers who play that role. So we don't currently visualize that every teacher will start playing the role where they are supporting students in understanding AI. For example, we do think every teacher needs to help students understand inclusion, understand ethics, but we don't put AI in that category where every teacher needs to help students understand AI. A subset of teachers will play that role. The remaining will become more employable themselves by using AI, is how we currently see it.
Sure. Just Ratnesh, coming to you, because you guys, I think we heard from verniq as how they are looking at scaling their own team. I think Google spoke about the ecosystem scaling, and from a teacher perspective, how the teacher training will happen. But now the workforce, and again, I'm just using AI as a tool, not necessarily teaching them k-mean algorithm or sort of random forest algorithm, so on and so forth. But when it comes to assessment and when it comes to testing, because we have workers across multiple sectors. I mean, there are much narrower sectors, narrower segment, and perhaps somebody working in retail will have a different way of using AI tools, not necessarily knowing AI. Somebody in farming will think very differently. Somebody in different sectors will think very differently. And from an ETS point of view, there's a huge segment that is going to get reskill and upskill. As you guys think about assessment, validation, certification, how do you see that role being played by ETS, given the fact that the entire generation will go through a mass scale skilling and upskilling when it comes to using AI tools and learning AI tools?
I think it's a very enabling moment for us, and it's actually a very, very interesting, exciting time. This is the first time we are looking at actually reaching to the mass, reaching to the ones which you're calling as a billion right now. So understand that assessment is a measurement science, right? You know, anything which you do requires a certain set of benchmark, right? So whether it's a school system or a employability, right? So if you are a global, if you're in a global space, right, and the new sectors are coming, and if you to play in that sector and in that segment and start mapping yourself to scale, the human would require that capability and assessment benchmarking or the measurement science for you to see how are you actually scaling, right? So going from one level to other. Case in example, we've had this healthcare, fintech, and other sectors which are coming in. Within that sector, there are different jobs. And if you look at those jobs, unless you do not understand the competencies of that job and therefore start building that competency and start measuring that competency, don't call that an assessment, call whatever you want to, but you require those competencies to be built. Today in India, you know, we've had skill sector doing all of this large skill sector and we've heard in the last budget some announcement of a great excellence to be set. I think it's a responsibility of this country, and I see this as a global hat, wearing a global hat, to start enabling people by really, really building those competencies. You know, our neighboring countries in Asia, you see workforce are actually exported in thousands and millions. We're not as much exporters. We're not as much building competencies. We are just having same knowledge built over the years, and assessment in a way we have looked at assessment. Assessment is competency building, assessment is measurement science to be able to go from one level to other. Let's not call that assessment, let's not call it summative assessment, let's not, you know, make the people fear from that. Let's make sure that we develop our pool of these billions to a level that they become capable to compete in the world which we are today living in. So AI today is a very enabling, empowering tool for organizations such as ours, because our mission is to make this billions people be more relevant everywhere, not here in China and different parts of the world as well. So I think we are more responsible at this point.
No, very well said. I think you rightly said that it's not just about assessment, but it's a holistic sort of view of looking at things. We are just hitting the last 7 minutes of our session. I will just ask you one last question. And this question is, again, going back to workers in this AI era. And there's a mass youth population, workforce in India who's sort of looking at AI era. And if you have to give one piece of advice to them, which they should not or they would not hear it in a classroom. So learning to learn is now out because you have already said it. Learning to unlearn is also out. I'm just elongating the question so that you guys can think about the answer. But what would be that one piece of advice that you would give to workers today that they would not hear in the classroom and they would not hear in a panel discussion? So I'm just making it tougher for all of you guys. But this is something just for everybody to think about, because this is, yeah, why don't we start with Ramya, because then it gives everybody else to start thinking about this idea.
I'm sure you hear it somewhere, but I would say focus on your natural intelligence, which is much more valuable thing and will not get commoditized the way AI is and will get very, very soon. And as long as you're focused on NI, then the learning to learn, unlearning to whatever, all of that will happen, and there's no need to fear AI.
NI, not AI, is your sort of feedback to people out there. Anybody here?
Should I?
Yeah.
Build your competency and don't fear to assess yourself. Keep assessing, keep moving on, and keep building assessment
Across
models.
all platforms, outside of ETS also.
All tools, all like the way you're kind of building the questions and others to sort of keep building and all, and keep assessing yourself.
Perfect, yeah.
I actually have two parts to it.
Sure, please, yeah, 2 is very good. Yeah.
One is on our end as companies. Don't build, integrate. uh, how we look at solutions is always, okay, let's build a new solution to it. But specifically for workers, what we think is that let's integrate. For example, integrate into WhatsApp. Do not build another app. WhatsApp is their tool they use the most. They know it better than probably me, how to use that tool, right?
Fair.
So integrate into that. Second, on the worker aspect is, which is what we kind of aim for also, ask questions. You will have the answers. That is what AI, for me at least, is that.
Be curious.
Correct. Now you can ask any question in the world you wanted, you'll have an answer. No time in the history we could have done that,
No,
right?
lovely.
So that's one skill set probably which would transform a worker from, let's say, an average performer to a top performer.
Okay, I have a really different answer here.
Not on
Apart
panel,
from
not
the-
on classrooms, not on the. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So learning to learn was my first, but yeah, that's dismissed.
But that you said already, so that's.
But I was thinking about how we hire at Google. We, of course, look, the first thing we see is the ability to learn and adapt. But the really most important aspect is character development. Okay, and by character development, I don't mean just fundamental things like integrity, honesty, but even just resilience. Okay, we're going to go through so much rapid change that successful students, successful professionals are going to go through lots of changes, lots of ups and downs. There'll be times when you'll be down because technology changed, business changed, everything's changing. So somehow, while we talk about assessments and automation and all of that, there's not enough focus on character development, I feel. That needs to be emphasized to students, that make that a priority, and then everything else will fall in line. So.
No, fair. I think lovely. So get to everybody's feedback. Any last comment that anybody wants to leave here?
I just want to go back to the topic, Mank. In fact, that's very exciting because when you start painting a larger picture for India, India is not India only to consume in India. India have workers who actually can go across the world. The aspect of collaboration, culture, sensitivity, be able to work in a different culture, those are the things which has not gone beyond a certain level in India. And I think organizations such as ours is a very responsible sort of job for making sure those goes, because we want millions of these people to equip in a place where there are not many millions and there are kind of aging populations and things like that. So our ability to export and also build a competency within this to serve this billion is actually a responsible job, both for private and public sector.
So my new venture, I don't know if you guys know, is something similar. So I did not pay anything to Ratnesh to make that plugin. No, but look, guys, thank you very much for this. I just want to maybe leave with this one last comment that as we enter into the AI era, I was just talking to somebody and they said that, look, India has a demographic dividend. It can either become a debt or disaster, or it can become a dividend. And therefore, as we think of the demographic sort of component, the critical question for us is that we are at a very interesting stage where AI as a phenomena is reshaping the workforce, is reshaping the ecosystem, and we have the ability to take a front and center stage. As you said, Ratnesh, and all of you guys said, India not just will supply for India, but will supply for the world. And if you're taking the center stage, we have to be very clear that India, and this I spoke about in some other session also, that India should not be in a place where we end up becoming old before we end up becoming rich. And I think AI is that one such phenomena where we can work really hard and skill a large set of people so that while we are getting older, we are ending up becoming rich. Because the next billion workers that are coming in for the era are not entering into the AI era. They're actually going to redefine and define the AI era. So on that note, thank you very much for listening in. Really appreciate all the panelists taking our time to sort of speak about this.
Thank you.